Mhm.
All right. That looks quite solid, I would say. Quick check, but yeah. A very warm welcome to what is actually a birthday episode. I think we're marking the 10th, if I'm not totally wrong. So I think it's kind of a birthday, at least a small one. We're kind of steadily getting towards the 18, I would say. So then it's going to be a big party. Anyways, welcome to a big and freshly squeezed episode of PKs on Air. Today we actually have, or I have, two brilliant ladies with me on the stream. Well, obviously none other, of course, than my fantastic co-host, Miss Dominique Zeppel. Dominique, how are you?
Hi, yeah, I'm good. I'm good. I had were able to enjoy a beautiful weekend on a beautiful Berlin lake because the weather was quite perfect. So
Yeah, you were boating. I saw that. I was a
yes,
bit jealous.
yes, yeah, I took some time because during that times at the moment in terms of travel restrictions and everything around that, you must be a bit more creative to get some getaways here in Berlin. So yeah,
Fair enough.
we just
Fair
decided to
enough.
take a boat and enjoy a day in the sun to get out the city and
Yeah,
all
that
the
makes
noise.
sense.
Yes.
That makes sense.
So,
Fantastic. And then we also brought another one of our very own, I have to say. I'm very happy that none other than Julia decided to join us today. Julia, how are you?
I'm very good, thank you. I'm happy to be here. It's a first
Yeah,
for
well,
me.
maybe because maybe since people might not be familiar with you being here, like give us a quick 4 sentences. What do people need to know about you?
So basically, yeah, hi, I'm Julia, everyone. I'm the head of PPC here at PKs. So leading one of the brilliant PPC teams we have in PKs, because we're quite a lot of PPC people. We have it split into the international and national team, and I lead the national team currently. So yeah, I'm really happy to be here and excited to share some of the insights around what COVID has done to the PPC industry. So yeah, really happy to be here.
Fantastic. Yeah, it's gonna be that's another first, I'd say. I mean, we're usually a bit more on the organic side of things, but yeah, I mean, we had a really good chat a couple of weeks ago with Paul, and got like some really good feedback on, well, a good mix, bringing in paid social. So we was like, well, why not? So let's kind of stick with that and just rotate it a bit around. So like we did this AMA last week, or like the kind of the SEO tips for ecom basically. So I thought, well, why not? And we will be having, maybe quick housekeeping note before we get into the paid search topics. We will be having another like more kind of SEO centered edition next week with a fantastic colleague out of Switzerland. So Raphael Beans is actually joining us from Blue Glass, one of the top agencies in Switzerland. So we're going to be chatting a bit about kind of their challenges, how COVID kind of changed the landscape in Switzerland, and how they kind of adapted with their work, with their campaigning and whatnot. So that shall be interesting. But for today, I'm really excited. Actually, I saw some of your slides and was like, yeah, that looks good. Before we get into it, though, I think Dominique, you had one kind of leading question that you wanted to kind of fire away before we go, right?
Yeah, definitely. I thought about a quick introduction question because before Julia starts talking about her topic PPC in times of COVID-19, because I mean we have the 10th session today, and we're talking a lot about organic search topics before, and a lot about changes on content marketing, content strategy, but also impact on SERPs and search behavior during the last weeks. So Julia, I would be interested if you can say so in general before or without spoiling your presentation. What impact has Corona or had on PPC and paid media industry? Do you can say something in general about that?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I was also listening in on all the SEO ones. I like most of them. I didn't manage to join, but
Fair enough.
I also caught up on some of them after on YouTube.
Yeah, I was gonna say, big important note. If you missed some of the former episodes, before you go on and answer the question, please pop over to our YouTube channels. We still need some likes for a proper vanity URL, so please, by all means, if you're watching it live now, we need the likes.
Yes. Follow, subscribe, like, the usual.
Yeah, subscribe, like, exactly.
Following too many influencers, they say that.
Yeah, true.
But yeah, thanks for the question, Domi. I'm happy to answer it. Yeah, I have to say we definitely have seen a very huge impact of COVID-19. Yeah, there's been so many different impacts in different industries. It's really interesting. Like some companies have really come out as winners. Some have really lost a lot of money. And then there's some that just haven't been faced by it at all. So it's super interesting, I find. The one thing that we've definitely seen is that where the biggest struggles were definitely the travel industry, because basically COVID put a complete halt on traveling with all the lockdowns and everything in place. So yeah, just thinking about anything around airlines, hotels, people working in tourism. Actually, my father, so a little bit about me, maybe still, because we're in the beginning. I come from Austria, from a little touristy town called Sölden, and we have our own bed and breakfast as well. Right. So my family lives off tourism. And basically everyone where I come from. So it was quite, not only in the business sense, but also in a private sense, was quite scary how when it all unfolded, and it just put a complete stop to the whole winter season where I'm from, and my father had to close his bed and breakfast, and it just showed you, okay, I did not expect something like this to happen in my lifetime. So yeah, it's super crazy what kind of impact it had, and we kind of seen it as well here in a work sense, how some clients have been impacted so much and had to pause their paid media activities entirely. But yeah, what I think, maybe to think a bit of more of the positive side, something that I think it has kind of forced companies to do is think and kind of change their perspective and become much more digital focused than before, which I think is a great side effect, because I'm a huge fan in digital, probably suggested because I work at PKs as well. But,
most likely, I think that's one of the criteria. Huh? True, but yeah, no, you're right.
Yeah, and I think that seeing some brands entirely pivoting their strategy to go digital, that I think is actually a great side effect, and it's going to help them also after the whole Corona thing has stopped. So I think that is one of the big benefits of it. So I'm really excited that kind of forced some companies to become more digital. But yeah, and then there's some companies that were doing really well with it. So those ones I'm obviously really happy for as well. We've seen like spends double or triple in some areas where it's completely skyrocketed. I would want to see the PPC account of Zoom in this time.
Probably,
That would be, I would love to be a little fly on the PPC manager's shoulder and kind of see what was happening there, because that must have been absolutely insane. So yeah, it was very, very interesting to see the different sides, but I'm definitely gonna speak a little bit more about it in the presentation and show you some more details about everything.
Yeah, that sounds good. I mean, that's probably true, right? I mean, I think we have seen that pretty much all over the board. Like if we look at like that from a company's perspective, and not so much from a channel perspective, where we really kind of had some companies where we actually all of a sudden started doing a whole lot more in different channels, really. Because they were just doing so well, and kind of like even faced a situation where I recall that for some clients we had, like, they were just entirely sold out with their products. And like, I mean, that's great, right? So I guess as kind of scary and also how like impactful that entire thing is, I think there were like those small bits and pieces and success stories where it was actually really nice to see some companies being kind of benefiting from that entire situation. I agree.
Totally.
Yeah, cool. So if you do, I mean, just maybe you bring up your the slides. And meanwhile, so we did the same. So just for those of you who are watching live now, we should be live as usual on the channels that we kind of always use. So that's Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube. So if you're watching live, feel free to just drop us a message, ask questions. We're going to be collecting them either in between or after, whatever you prefer. And then also, if you want the slides that you put together, feel free to drop us a note, hi@pa.ag. We're happy to share them afterwards, and then you can just poke around, have a look at the data and examples. And I would say, without further ado, now, Julia, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. So I'll get right into it. So basically, I'll talk a little bit about the general impact, similar to what I kind of just talked about in the beginning. Then I want to share some insights on the current situation, because it's been some time and there's been some developments happening. Then I'm gonna try answering a question that we will probably get more and more from clients now, is like when you should ramp up your spend again. And then also some of the Google efforts in times of COVID-19, they've been trying many things. Like I watched Pau's episode as well, similar to what Facebook has done. It's very similar things Google has also done. So we'll speak a little bit about that.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that, because I think that was one of the topics that also like resonated really well with the other episode. Like, you know, the efforts that companies put in, kind of what are they doing, and what is the impact out of that. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to that one. That's going to be quite interesting, I think.
Yeah.
Cool.
And then just a little bit at the end, how we made use of some of our extra time during the crisis, because some clients did pause, so we had to spend our time useful. So yeah, we'll give you some insights about that as well. But yeah, to start with the Corona impact. So basically, this is probably something you've all seen by now more often already, but basically when the global pandemic hits, I thought this was quite a funny thought. Even the weather becomes secondary, because this is like, if you consider how many people search for the weather, you know, it's quite a serious thing the moment something exceeds weather searches. So I like to take the German example, because it's slightly different in terms of timings. And in Germany, the weather is a very important small talk topic. So, you know, it's important to consider what this kind of means if something overtakes weather searches by so much. And what we basically see in this Google Trend chart is that literally it kind of, because in the first one, you can kind of see it started a lot earlier in all regions. You know, in like January, there was a bit more news coming around. But then in Germany, it kind of wasn't such a big topic. Just until end of February, it kind of started happening a little bit, like you can really see it here. But then literally the week of the 16th of March.
Yeah, mid of March, right?
Absolutely gone crazy. That's when everyone started to get really worried as well at work and so on. We really remember that week, I think.
I mean, there was the one that was the week when we also sent everyone into the home office, right? That was mid-March, basically. Yeah,
it was like the week after. Yeah, basically that Friday we decided, I think, to send everyone.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
So it kind of really reflects on these trends as well, which is really interesting to see. And then you can kind of see now the weather has taken over again.
So, you know, looks like it.
People are getting less interested. So yeah, and I guess summer is coming, so weather is important. And then something also really interesting is just how all these new search trends came up with all these new keywords about masks, disinfection, hand sanitizers, washing hands. So you can really see here when the masks have become, that you had to wear them if in public transport and so on. There was like a huge spike, and obviously everyone had to somehow get masks somewhere. Also know someone that has a mask business, great business to have in this time, let me tell you. So yeah, obviously big entrepreneurs jump on every opportunity they have. So, you know.
Clearly, yeah.
And yeah, something that I've really enjoyed reading was an article by WordStream. They have so many clients, so they have huge amounts of data to analyze. And I always enjoy reading their articles on what kind of trends they're seeing, because they have so much data to analyze. And here's some of the winner and loser categories or industries that they've sort of identified. I think it's kind of like some of the obvious one. I'm just going to pick out a few here. So basically in the winners, I thought it was quite nice actually to hear that nonprofits and charities are getting more traction in such times, because when in tough times, you know, people also do realize, okay, maybe I need to help. Maybe I can do, I'm in a better life situation than some others, so maybe I can do something to help. And I think that's really heartwarming. So I really like that. And yeah, also health and medical is very obvious, because you can't just go to your pharmacy anymore that easily. Business management is a huge one, because people had to like pivot their business digital, so they needed to think about whole new supply chain. How am I going to get everything packaged, shipped, digitally, going entirely online? It is a difficult thing for some companies to do, so it makes lots of sense that these kind of companies were winners in this time. Also, the finance, I think, is quite an interesting one, because I think it's like a mixed bag, but because the stock market kind of goes down so much as well, it is a time where a lot of people are actually interested in finding out more and seeing if they can somehow invest, because you know
the amount of trading per se went up significantly.
Yeah, true. Exactly. And then, you know, the usual hand sanitizers, obvious, Netflix, obvious, also greetings, gifts and flowers, I think all makes lots of sense. In the mixed results, I think it's interesting things like home furniture, because I myself thought, okay, but that must be doing much, much better because everyone's at home. But it is true that like smaller items have really picked up. So a lot of people are like decorating their home, but then big ticket items like a huge bed or sofa that costs you thousands of euros, that's not an easy decision to make when you're in an unstable economic situation. So.
Yeah. Plus, I suppose also one of the reasons might be is that obviously a long time like those kind of showrooms were closed, right? So also the kind of the big places where you can actually get them. So if you're not fully just go and buy them online for those items, I imagine that might also be one of the reasons for it.
Yeah, exactly. And also like automotive mix, I think is probably hit pretty hard, to be honest.
I was gonna say, I think that might be even a bit different by now, right?
Yeah, I think so too. I think I also have a friend that actually works in the automotive industry, and they've entirely on furlough and short-time work. So there's like no one buying cars. But then again, they put it in the mixed results, because then people selling cars is kind of picking up, you know, people wanting to make money of it is still more as well. So it's kind of like some areas like new car buyers will not be that many, but then on the other end more. So yeah, that's probably why it's in the mixed results. Retail, I think also is a very mixed one, because we've seen really great results there, which I'll share a bit more about later. And then the losers, I think they're very obvious, but the travel and tourism, as I mentioned, bars, restaurants that were during lockdown and had to like somehow survive this period. It was like pretty scary, because you really wanted to like support your local restaurants and bars, and you're like, how can I make them stay afloat, because I don't want them to not be there anymore after this time. And I guess it was like everywhere like this. Also concerts.
I think that's actually quite significant for them. The longer lasting effects are probably even worse than some of the others, right? If you think about like the like all the festivals during summer season, like they're all gone, right? They're literally all gone. So I think that I just, if you think about the huge festivals alone, that's absolutely insane.
Yeah, it's such a huge business as well. Like there's so many people going to like concerts and festivals, like there's so much money in this that at the moment is entirely on hold, because big gatherings, that's one thing that's going to be critical for a longer time period.
Yeah, that's the point, right? The longer lasting effect is even worse. Yeah.
It's going to be a difficult one for that industry for sure. Yeah. I think sports and fitness, I think on the fitness apps, that's not true.
Yeah, they probably gained.
Definitely gained. If I consider myself definitely one of heavy users. But then again, like sports, we also have one client. So like sports clubs, things like that. Yeah. That was also a difficult time for them.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
To play their games, and that's such a huge industry where so much sponsorship money, so much money is in that industry. So yeah, it makes total sense. And yeah, building construction, also work sites being closed. In the industrial manufacturing also makes lots of sense with a big hold on China and everything. So yeah, kind of still all makes sense, but we have some different insights from ourselves as well. So what does our data show? I just kind of wanted to correlate to all the Google trend data, which is so general about everything. I just wanted to overlay this with our current, like our MCC data. We have over 500 Google Ads accounts in there from various industries. So I thought it was quite interesting to have a little look what it's done to our MCC. And you could see very clearly when this peak happened in Google Trends, that was when the little needle went down on our MCC as well. So the week of the 16th of March is the one where you notice the significant drop in like impressions, clicks, and cost. So yeah, that was the first little hit. Then that still kept going for a little while. So people were figuring out things. You could really see that in March. They're like, okay, what to do with my campaigns, what to do with my people.
Yeah, probably like, also how bad is it getting, right?
Yeah, exactly. So trying to keep an eye on, okay, how's my performance still? What do I have to do next? We had a lot of interesting calls with clients, like having to really keep a close eye on everything, how things are developing. So yeah, very, very interesting time for sure for PPC managers. And yeah, then the very interesting thing kind of happened from beginning of April, because that's where you see a huge impact on the average CPC. So it's like the yellow line here. It dropped down quite significantly. Like this doesn't happen. I can tell you, average CPC is a thing that keeps increasing. It does not. It does not decrease. It's one thing that Google, kind of helps, is that it continues increasing usually. But this is where you see all of a sudden loads of advertisers dropping out, pausing their activity, and then as a result, we had the lowest CPC since 2016 in April of this year. So 25% less than March. So that's a big drop in CPCs. Thought that was hugely interesting. And
it's massive. The impact is really severe if you look at it from that perspective.
Yeah, and you can kind of see then it kind of remained like that for April, because this is
almost the entire April, right? Yeah.
It's the month where most advertisers paused their activity, I believe. And then May, some were kind of restarting already, reconsidering a little bit more, but you can still see it. And now June sort of started, and you can see it's coming back. Also, the spend is slightly increasing, but it's definitely on the upwards trend again. So super interesting, I thought. And yeah, just to kind of, because this is obviously all the accounts we have in the MCC, and therefore we wanted to highlight a little bit what kind of industries we've seen work well and not so well. And something that we've noticed do really well was home and garden. So those, we have a couple of clients in that area, and they've absolutely exploded in April. So it's crazy but that kind of shows we had a majority of pretty heavily impacted clients, because in our overall MCC, you could kind of see the downwards trend, but because there was some clients that completely went insane, but it wasn't even showing that much. So it just kind of shows the scale. But yeah, they were doing really, really well, sold out of their products within that month that they would usually be lasting until September, October. So it's super crazy. Also like cleaning products, which makes a lot of sense as well. And gambling, it's sad but true that people are gambling more.
Well, people need to spend their time with something, right? So that's either that's Netflix or gambling, I suppose.
People have their different pastimes, you know.
Yep.
Gotta give everyone what they want. Another thing is like DIY supplies, so that also picked up a lot. Yeah, so if it's like fabrics or things like that, where people could spend their time with at home, and then also online postal services makes sense too, because there's no one going to.
I guess the supplies also goes back a bit to the fact that a lot of people were like starting to build masks, right? So that's another funny thing that I noticed when I looked at the data.
Yeah, definitely. And then the ones that were hit pretty hard, obviously the travel, it's because we have quite a few clients in that area. Obviously, we've noticed a big decrease in performance there. Also duty-free merchants, no airline, no flights going. Who needs duty-free merchants during that time?
I saw yesterday that I think Frankfurt Airport alone had like I think they lost 96% of their passengers in the last month. So they just only had like 300,000 or something in comparison to what they usually have is a couple of million. So it's insane. Like obviously there's no duty-free going on there.
No. That's insane. That's definitely 96%. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's. I was really surprised that was not that bad, but it was significant.
Yeah, and then sports, as I mentioned already, we had a sports club as client as well, similar there. Also logistics a little bit was hit, and so that's kind of the industries we've seen. We obviously don't have like 20,000 Google Ads account like WordStream, but it's still interesting insights, I hope. So I wanted to show what it kind of done. I wanted to show some of the extremer examples in the two ends. So one travel example and one home and garden example. So here the travel example, where you can see how impressions, clicks, conversions, cost has developed. And one thing I have to mention here, the demand has naturally decreased. We have not manually adjusted things in this account because it was all doing it by itself. There's like, you didn't have to intervene because the demand handled itself. Like that no one was searching for it anymore. And no one's searching, don't need to pull back. If a lot of people are searching, but you're not and clicking and not doing anything, then you actually need to pull back. But this was all natural decrease. So I thought that was super interesting to hear because I would have definitely thought that you would need to pull back. And it correlates exactly with the other things we've seen. So like that week of the March 16 is when it kind of hit that low. And just continued. And
then we had the global travel ban, and now it's probably domestic that's picking up, right?
Yeah, and now it's kind of coming back. But basically it was minus 83% of costs and conversions year on year. So March and April combined versus the year before. So that's obviously a big hit for this travel client. And you can now see it really nicely. Again, this is happening naturally. We are monitoring very closely, making sure that there's enough budget for the increase to happen again, but it's slowly starting to happen again. People are starting to travel inland, also just in close distances, and they still need places to stay or ways to get there. So it still kind of makes sense that this is like on the upwards trend now, and hopefully we'll be getting back to previous levels very soon. And then one of the beautiful examples of home and garden, where the demand has gone absolutely insane. I just love this example so much because the numbers are so crazy. Basically, you can see in the dotted lines, that's the previous year. the same time the previous year. So you can just see how it all of a sudden, it started exactly again, March 16th. It's like, this is the key week of everything. And then it just goes insane. It goes absolutely AWOL, especially April, having a huge party. And then kind of important products were being sold out. So that's what happened here. So it's not even that it would have stopped. It's just that, they were literally sold out of their products. So that's what happened. And then restocked some of it. And then again, sold all of it. But yeah, it's crazy because this is a client that so the usual seasonality for this client would start around June. So this is what you see in the previous year's data.
A slight uptick in June, yeah.
So it would sort of start ramping up slowly the months towards June. And then July, August would be the main season. But this is obviously going to be very different this year around, with them having literally made their entire year's revenue by April already.
So they're done. They just go on vacation now, huh?
They don't need to work anymore. It's okay. but yeah, so 175% conversion and revenue increase year on year from March to 20 versus 19. So really, really beautiful example of what positive impact Corona could have. And then how are things now? Because as we could see, things are kind of changing. Has the situation improved? What have we tested? What other insights can we share? And we definitely can say that it's improving. Things are looking better. Signs of recovery is showing. People are being a bit more optimistic as well, which I enjoy because I genuinely like optimism. And most advertisers that have paused their activities are slowly restarting their campaigns. The ones that have reduced budget significantly are sort of ramping up again. And as we kind of seen in the travel example, where the demand is increasing naturally due to all the loosened government rules, we can kind of, look forward to hopefully not a second wave. That would be horrible. So let's hope that's not happening. But if it continues in this trend, then it's gonna improve very much. And I wanted to share some of the things we kind of tried to test during this time. One thing that's a big one, of course, is kind of adapting ad copy messaging around Corona. So we tested changing the ads to reflect USPs that matter more in times of crisis or in times of Corona, where people couldn't go anywhere, or just highlight again when we're open for you, so when you're open again, so just to kind of make sure people are aware this is not an old ad and that you know what's happening and you acknowledge the current situation. Don't worry, we got you. So we have like one of our travel clients here that kind of then mentioned, hey, we are open for you. We have a contactless check-in. So they have an app that you can check in with. You don't even need to see a person. So that's one of the big USPs that they always had. But then again, in this time is an even bigger USP.
Yeah.
And then the other example from like the online postal service that we have as a client, where you can just say, hey, you can request this easily from home. Always a lot of enforcement on the word safe. So this is just a lot of safe and fast online implementation or request. The performance of this. So the left one, we haven't seen much performance yet. It's not enough to tell you any data. So I can't share anything, unfortunately. It's been too short. However, on the right one, we have the ad has received the strongest conversion rate, the second strongest click-through rate, and the second best cost per lead out of the 4 different ads within the ad group. So that's definitely a positive result and shows that it's worth adapting our ad copy messaging with USPs or things that might help during this time. The site link, however, didn't do so great. So kind of this little one, sicher von zu Hause, people didn't seem to be so interested in. But then again, the majority of people click on the main part of the ad anyway. So,
yeah, that's probably the reason, right?
Yeah. And because it said they are everywhere, then you don't need to necessarily go onto the site link for that. But yeah, that's one thing. And then we also have run some specific campaigns. So some clients had to pivot their products entirely, or not entirely, but they had to do something different to kind of make the most of the situation that they are in. One of our kind of security home emergency client, so super complicated to explain their product, but they
that might be the first issue already, but hey, who am I to judge, right?
Yeah. So they kind of brought out this video emergency tablet for the elderly, so that they could stay in contact with their family as well. So I thought this was really sweet, because it's generally their product is very centered around the elderly. It's just to have that home emergency system in place. But this was just, be close to your loved one, even though you can't be close to them, because they were like the one part of the population that was really a high risk group. So I think it was horrible for the elderly to be that lonely for such a long time and not being able to see their grandchildren and their families. That's like super sad. So I think this is actually great that they tried to help with something like this. And it reached the client's goals. So the campaign was doing really well, was within the CPA goal set. And so they were very happy with the results. And then we have another example, a tutoring client that is usually very heavily on in-person tutoring in groups. So obviously not a great one during Corona. So this one, they entirely shifted their business to online tutoring, which this is one of the examples that I mean when companies become more digital focused, because this is like, they might have been like, this is not important for us because our focus is different. But then you could actually see them shifting. It's going to bring them a new product because they had to really focus and get something ready and out there super quick. So then they will have an additional product once they came out of lockdown, so they can still kind of offer that online tutoring,
kind of as an add-on product or alternative, right? To
and that was not a focus before. So I think that's actually a good thing. But even though tutoring, it is a kind of a thing, and it's kind of their whole business is around, they want to do it in person, and they have a bigger impact. They feel they have a bigger impact on the grades of the students that way. So I think it's totally fair, but in desperate times, you need to rethink.
Yeah, I mean, the alternative would have been that they wouldn't have been doing business during that time at all, right? So I suppose, I mean, better this than nothing.
Yeah, totally. And then we have some insights from one of the clients that we kind of onboarded in the midst of Corona crisis. So in March, we kind of restructured the account, and we were kind of sharing the results with the clients. So we kind of sharing some results with you here. So you can see the quality score of the old campaigns that were in place previously in February 2020, and then the quality score of the new campaigns in May 2020. And we managed to increase the quality score from 4 to 4.9 in such a short time frame, which is already a great result. It looks lovely, much more green, But then having a more detailed look, because usually we would expect a little bit more, to be honest. We had a look at the components of the quality score. There's these 3 components. I'm not going to say them all again because we don't have too much time, but basically you could see this was the image in February, a lot of below average on the different components. It was not looking great at all. And then in May, you can see we've really, really improved on the estimated click-through rate and on the ad relevance part. It's the one thing that we have a lot of impact on as an agency, depending on the account structure we do and how closely we tie the ad copy to the keywords. But yeah, what has actually really gotten a lot worse was the landing page experience. And we were like, what? What happened?
Why?
Why?
What did you do there, Julia? Huh?
It wasn't me, I swear. No.
Yeah, that's what they all say usually.
And in the end, we just kind of had a look what could be the reason for this, because we couldn't explain it to ourselves, because we had nothing has changed on the landing pages we used. They were just as relevant as they were before. They were matching the user intent. That's some things that are really important, things like, but also page speed and so on. There's many factors that come into play, but the one thing that we actually noticed where there was a significant difference was the analytics data. So anything like bounce rate, pages per session, average session duration, it has gotten a lot worse. And we believe that all of this is due to the coronavirus, because people are maybe doing their research a little bit more superficially and might postpone a potential contract to later once the situation has stabilized. So they were spending less time on the site and bouncing more often, just staying on one page of the website. So because everything else, it was very contradicting for us. We've never really seen something getting that much worse when everything else has improved so much. So I think
fundamentally, like a significantly shifted behavior, basically.
Yeah, basically that was what was causing the big impact on the landing page experience. And you can only really see once you look at the specific components what is the reason for it.
Makes sense.
So super interesting insight. So if you notice some of your quality score being impacted in some way or another, maybe have a look at this. Keep an eye on your analytics data as well, because there might be people are just behaving differently these days. They're not only, the whole user behavior changes basically.
Yeah, I guess that's also an interesting observation in regards to what's going. We had this I think in a couple of episodes touched on it. It's like, well, what's this new normal gonna look like, right? And I guess, no one really knows. And there are some predictions out there and some studies have been done and whatnot. But I guess this is really interesting to see, right? Because at the end of the day, the question is, how much of the old behavior, if do we get back or not, right? No one knows, but I think that's a really good tip here that people are just not it's always good to question yourself, as you said, well, did we change something? Did we touch on something? We all make mistakes, right? So have there been errors and whatnot? And you're like, but and this is the same, an interesting example that we had in organic a while back. It was not related to Corona actually, but it was even before. It's like when Google rolls out the updates, like the core updates or whatever they're called nowadays, and you kind of look at the search results, and all of a sudden they entirely shift what's ranking in the top 10 due to the fact that potentially they reconfigured, or let's say they use kind of machine learning to understand, well, what's the actual intent, and then therefore the result set shifted. And all of a sudden, you didn't change anything on your site. Your domain is still the same, your offer is still the same, but turns out Google thinks you're just not relevant anymore, right? So that's different story, but the same outcome. All of a sudden you're like, why do I not get traffic? Or as you said, well, are my engagement metrics all of a sudden that way? I find that quite interesting. And sometimes it's a bit further back than just looking at the core data.
Yeah, it's always important to question also the stuff that you do, and if what you're doing is the right thing, and if you need to change something essentially, because if it is about the website generally or the service you offer and it's not hitting the intent, that's a big problem as well.
Yeah, you can do it literally. Back in the days it was probably still doable. I would say now, if you're not winning in terms of being the brand and then being relevant for what's the kind of fit for that specific intent, or sometimes we have multiple intents. We had the discussion with Kevin Indick some episodes back, where he said, well, keyword data and that you have one intent but not only one. Sometimes you have additional ones, like implicit ones. I think that's really very much true, because if, as you said, like if you can't serve that, if your landing page doesn't fulfill that, well, you won't be ranking at some point anymore.
Yeah, super interesting. I'll quickly move on to ramping up spend, because that's a very important question to answer, I suppose. So one thing I would say is the main thing you can do at all times. I love Google Trends. I'm a huge fan. I just think it really, really tells you what's going on in the market. So keep your important keywords like your brand, your major generic keywords, or also your competitors, always in a good view, and monitor this and spot changes in behavior. So you can see here as well already that, the travel industry should probably be thinking about reactivating things now, because at least for hotels, it's looking better. Flights, I think they are going to have a little bit of a tougher time, but from this week, I hope that might change, because basically the travel restrictions are lifted from so many countries, so that might change a lot now. We probably see a bit of a spike here next week if we would look at this. So that's one important one. Then monitoring competitor activity really closely. I really enjoy SEMrush as a tool here. Shameless plug of the tool. I really love it. But we've been using it a lot, and it just helps you so much. Like there's this advertising research, for example, and you can look at the ad history, and you could just kind of see when has an ad been live. So you can see really well that these guys have been paused in April, and they've been reactivating just their brand keyword, their just single brand keyword, pure brand keyword in May. And you can do this for all your competitors, but there's so many tools out there in the market. You can get many different ones. Just try and keep an overview. You can also just search on Google itself, kind of noticing, are they running any ads? That's like the cheapest solution, of course, if you want to use that.
But I think what you said, like the ad history is really valuable, right? So if you want to like poke around a bit more precisely, or trying to understand potentially what's the change in ad copy as well, because they have the snapshots, right? I think this is really cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. And this is like, you can do it for the different countries. So this is like Germany now. The image on this website, for example, was very different in the US. They had no pause of activities there. Like it really changes depending on the kind. And also they have, if you're, for example, working on a display client, and they also have this feature where it shows you when was a display ad last seen. So it literally tells you the last date and a display ad was seen. So that's really cool. And okay, if it's the last one has been seen on the 16th of March, then
then you know what's going on.
It's been paused for a while. So also super cool. There's so many cool parts of this tool. I really recommend getting yourself a competitor insight tool. Then just one thing that I think is more just in general, not so much about ramping up the spend, but when whatever activity you are running, just consider communicating well with your customers. Just use your ads as a tool to communicate what's going on, and that you acknowledge that things are different and you understand their situation. And even if it's only on your brand keywords, if you just run on your brand, your campaign, you can change the ad copy messaging slightly, and it will potentially give you an uplift in click-through rate, but also you're just gonna get a positive sentiment from people that you're acknowledging the situation and you're being transparent, and whatever it is. If you have like
we had similar examples. And I think it's quite nice to see that the channel somewhat worked the same way. Like I think Dominique had that in like her presentation a couple of weeks back as well. That where we saw for the campaigns, it's potentially like acknowledging the fact that there is something different. Either you change it or you at least change the wording around it or whatnot. And I think I also shared like this example of like the PK's homepage where we like have this tile saying, well, guys, we're still here. We're still, not here, but at least we're still working and functioning as a company. And I think, as you said, like that, it makes total sense to have like multiple touch points, and that could be ad copy, that could be campaigning, that could be the homepage, wherever. Kind of tie this together to kind of really feel like make people feel safe in that regard.
Exactly, that's exactly the thing. Then one thing I always think, this is a general one, I think brand ads should never be paused. Even in the worst crisis, because there's always competitors that will not pause them. So, and it will not pause their competitor bidding. So you will lose out customers to your competitors if you don't, because some people just don't look that closely. Who am I clicking on here? They go like, oh, first.
Yeah.
And just to, it's that easy for your competitor to get that traffic. And then once they're on that site, they're already so far further in that competitor's website, and that's too far. You don't want them there if they're searching your keyword. So then if you had to really pause everything and you've been having no funds available to run advertising, then this is the first thing you should reactivate as a definite suggestion from my side, because this is in the end where it's usually the top performing part of your account. It has the cheapest cost per clicks, has the cheapest cost per leads or cost per acquisitions. So definitely the first one to reactivate if you have had that paused. Then just kind of letting the demand inform you. So kind of check data in your account as well, because your account does inform you. So if you've not been paused entirely, or for example, you started activating some stuff, just monitor everything closely, maybe reactivate campaigns on a low budget and keep an eye, check your impression share and auction insights numbers, because that basically tells you what your competitors are doing and how well you're comparing to that. So ramp up budget and bid slowly accordingly where you see good performance and where you see the demand increase. So when you see more impressions coming in, or when you notice the status of your campaigns changing to budget being limited or bids being below first page, things like that, that should help. If you're not using smart bidding, of course, smart bidding will help you do those, notice those changes automatically. So that's the main benefit of that. And then I really wanted to mention this because I think it's for free. So in the end,
free is always good. We like freebies, so you're welcome to share them.
And I'm here with my two organic friends. So
yeah. That's what I'm like. We take free whenever we can. That's totally true.
So that's why I really wanted to share this. So if you use Google Shopping usually, or you haven't started with it yet or whatever, Google does have organic shopping listings now. It is kind of already live in the US. So there's proper enhanced listings similar to Google Shopping Live in the US. But it's also rolling out to the rest of the world by the end of 2020. So all you need to really do is have a feed uploaded in Google Merchant Center. That's where you keep your feeds for Google Shopping as well. And you have to have the surfaces across Google setting active and have it like selected as a destination. And then you can, you can see it here. I showed as an example. It's kind of, you can see that it's active in the tool settings, Google platforms. And then eventually once the whole enhanced listing point is going to come out as well, you will then see a performance dashboard where you can see the free clicks you've been receiving and things like that. And then on the right, there's already an example because there's a part of it already kind of live also in like other countries. So this was just from today. You can see when you search, when you do an image, when you're on an image part of Google, you can search for a specific product and you will see this little product tag. So that kind of already suggests you, okay, there's a product that's getting into this direction of like organic shopping results. But yeah, definitely one thing to keep in mind, and it's free, so why not?
Yeah, absolutely. That can't hurt, I suppose.
Yeah. And then we're already at the Google efforts. So the few things that Google's trying to do, very similar to something that was also on Facebook as well. So the kind of, if you just search for coronavirus, there's a huge information hub, current numbers, everything updated constantly. So latest news, whatever there is. They try also link only to trustworthy sources here in the resources. So whatever it is about, here there are links that you can actually trust. It's not it's just from the Regierung, from the government and whatever.
Yeah, just government, yeah.
Yeah, so you don't have to find those links yourself so much. And then also one thing that is not that needed anymore, so I'm gonna go very quickly over it, but there would be, you could update your business information if in case you are still closed or you have different opening hours, just consider changing this as well. There's a little link there too.
That's Google My Business, right?
Yeah, with Google My Business,
Yeah.
And then also one thing, Google has come out with a lot of like guides and things, but also I think with Google has this Google's rising retail categories. So you can kind of see latest trends in retail. So things or products for a certain country that are doing well. Unfortunately, this is, for example, not available for Germany. Mean.
Would have been my next question, yeah.
Yeah. But literally some of the more, pretty like 10 countries or something you can choose, UK, US, some European countries there as well, but Germany isn't, so I felt like a bit.
Well, I suppose at least it gives you like an indication, right? As it always does.
Yeah.
So like you could then still like go back and use like, as you said, like trends or see if that makes sense. Or like I think in episode 8, Kevin Indig mentioned a whole bunch of tools like to data mine and understand more trends. So I suppose if you have the indication here, you can just go back, just add this extra step in your research journey, and then you're also okay. Yeah, but it's a good tip actually. Yeah.
Yeah, so have a look and see for yourself. And then one important thing, there's the COVID-19 relief for small to medium-sized businesses. So $340 million of ad credits have been granted. So this has been rolling out. So it's kind of saying here, it's now launched in New Zealand, Australia, Taiwan, Italy, and Germany. So we are actually one of the lucky countries here. So we already see it within the accounts. But basically you have to use this ad credit until the end of 2020 across Google Ads platforms. And it's just Google's way of trying to help. So
I was gonna say you have an example, right? Because that would be my question. What do people need to do for that? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so you can't really do anything for it. You had to like be spending money in your Google Ads account, I think throughout the last year or something for it to be eligible. And then every other criteria, Google kind of checks it and decides how much money to give you. And this is where I have a little bit of criticism, healthy criticism. But, the amount, I don't want to, there's this saying in Germany, einen geschenkten Gaul schaut man nicht ins Maul.
Yeah.
I don't know how to translate this to English, but basically you don't want to, if you get something for free, you don't want to complain about it. But the thing is, somehow some of the amounts that we have received in some accounts, they're so insignificant. I'm so sorry to say this, but it's like,
and also the relations seem to be quite funny sometimes, right? When you look, I mean, they were all. Correct me if I'm saying something wrong, but what I've seen, like they were all like, let's say a couple of €100, right? So like from 200, 300 up to what you're seeing here. But like the differences in regards to how big or small the businesses are, like that feel. I mean, as you said, like you shouldn't complain about it, but it just felt a bit strange. Let's put it that way.
Exactly. I just wanted to mention it because it's. If you think, oh, I didn't get very much, is that only me? No, it's not only you. It's
not only you. Yeah.
Or some didn't get anything at all. It's like a mixed bag. But when there's a client that spends like 300,000 a month on Google Ads and they get 710 euros in credit, you're like, wow, that's really gonna help me.
I think an interesting point in this entire discussion that was made. I don't know where I saw it, but like, so I mean, at the end of the day, it doesn't cost Google anything, right? So they're just giving you credit for the free auction anyway. So you could have, You could argue now that like if that's just being Google being the good Samaritan or maybe not. I guess either way.
Yeah, I mean, I think for some clients, even this amount is a lot. We have small.
No, of course. And especially for the smaller ones. Yeah, no, I totally agree.
And I mean, basically, you would see it in your account on the top if you enter your account like here.
Yeah.
And then you can view credit. You can kind of see, okay, how much you can see. This is a big account, has used it immediately already. So
yeah, okay.
That's a little example, but then here also this one I like quite much. If you're an agency, you can kind of check the on the notifications on the MCC level and check for the type filter for COVID-19 ad credits, and you get an overview of all the ad credits granted. So you can see here the amounts that kind of been given. So it's like 200, 600, 700 at max, sometimes even 80 euro only, or low amount. Very generous.
Okay.
But yeah, I wanted to share it because I think it's still great that they're doing something. But
of course, yeah.
And then, last but not least, a very, very brief plug on what we've spent our time on during Corona. a little drum roll, because we can do even more than before with Amazon. So we can also now support our clients with Amazon ads. So we spent some time getting certified, like doing all the ins and outs, having some clients that we are just kind of checking their accounts and helping them develop it. So like trial accounts to get this going. But yeah, if you need help with your Amazon ads, we are now also able to help you. So I won't tell you more than that.
Just email her. That's important.
Yeah, exactly. You can email me if you need help. And then, because we don't only look out for ourselves, we also wanted to do something for a good cause. And therefore, we decided to really enroll and get into the grips and details with Google Ad Grants, which is something I'm going to explain to you now, because not everyone will know what that means. It's basically, that's actually a great initiative by Google. That's
with really some more money tied to it. Yeah, I agree.
So there's a lot more budget for nonprofits here, but basically it's a program from Google that gives nonprofits $10,000 per month in free advertising with Google Ads. And we thought this is great and we should be doing so much more with it. So we offered to charities to do their Google Ads for them for free on an entirely voluntary basis, to make use of our time during Corona and do something for a cause, because in the end we also want to help. So yeah, these are the two brilliant charities we're helping with Google Ads. So Webuilding and Wassertor. Webuilding is kind of helping to build a sustainable architecture to help communities around the world build a better and brighter future. And Wassertor is our local charity that we have worked with a lot in the past already. They're just helping improve the quality of life in our Kiez, as we like to call it in German. It's our little area where the office sits. So yeah, that's basically it. That's all I have for you guys today.
Well, all is good. You had a packed hour, my dear. Not bad, not bad. Yeah. So much good info in there. Really cool. Thank you very much for
Thank you so much.
that. Yeah, highly appreciate it.
Yeah, so I have some links there as well. We'll share the slides and
yeah. I was gonna say, so like again, if you guys want the slides for whatever part you're looking for, just email us. The team is happy to help you out with that, and then we can like circulate the slide deck as well. I mean we're already pretty far down the line in terms of time, but I think still we should do like one or two questions. And one thing that that I think would be is a topic that you said yourself like kind of came up a couple of times, and I think also we have seen a lot of discussion around it. Just in general, is this a discussion, and we talked about it with Dominique before as well. So what if you have to pause? Like what are your general thoughts around it, and like what would you recommend? I mean, you touched on a couple of topics in regards to brand, but maybe and let's spend like 2-3 more minutes on that, because I think it's a super important topic for anyone.
Yeah, definitely. Very good question. I generally and honestly don't think it makes sense to completely pause your activities ever. I understand though that there's sometimes moments where you have to take this difficult decision, and where you're struggling so hard that you can't even sustain a low level of spend, because generally even on a low level, you can keep things running even if it's only a little bit. But yeah, as I said before, kind of keeping at least your brand campaigns live, that doesn't cost you so much usually, and it protects your brand, but also things like remarketing campaigns, because just because we're in a time of crisis doesn't mean that people that have visited your website before or have been your past customers, that they're not gonna purchase or use your service again. They might still convert contrary to current market trends. And yeah, also, I think one of the things I kind of mentioned in the beginning was about the CPC's decrease. So it is actually a really good time to use that time of where everyone else is pausing for your own benefit, because that's the time where you will get the cheapest cost per clicks on all kinds of digital advertising channels. Industries like finance, they've have crazy cost per clicks, and all of a sudden in this time the clicks prices just decreased so much, so you have a huge chance to get much more for your money during that time. And that's why I think it's also worth kind of trying to even build your brand during such a time. Yeah. I really think that it might sound a bit crazy to some people to go and invest money into brand awareness in such times. But I think if you do it in a charming way and kind of, if you have like a company where it makes sense and you can kind of just use that in your communication or like run a specific marketing campaign around this, it sticks with people. If you know, maybe in some times of crisis, there were some brands even like doing advertising showing that they are helping others, or like even they are trying to help in this time. So that's like brand building that's gonna keep a positive sentiment with your customers. And I think that is a huge, powerful thing that you can do during this time. And yeah, offering your customers like alternatives as well, like I said, with like the restaurants closing nearby, offer vouchers or give people the chance to leave their email address on your website so you can contact them again once your service is usable again, or whatever. There's so many things you can do in times of crisis. I think completely pausing is the worst option of all of it.
Clearly, I suppose, as you said, like I think brand perception or branding in general is probably the one big thing. The other one is, as you said, like, I mean, every crisis is going to last for only so long. So, I mean, if you're not, well, let's just say for those that are around after the crisis, it totally makes sense, I suppose, to kind of use whatever you have. I mean, I think we all need to agree on the fact that obviously businesses are suffering. Some are suffering more, some are suffering less, and you can't expect the same level of performance for anything. That could be any campaign that we're looking at, I would say. But as you said, like, if you have at least a kind of a certain like possibility to spend some, then use that wisely, and like a full stop is probably usually the worst worst thing you can do. I would agree.
And it's like when you reach people cheaply, like display, YouTube ads, whatever. These are channels where you can get so much reach for very cheap. It doesn't cost you very much. And you reach them very cheaply. You can throw them into an audience later, literally even make it your Corona audience or whatever. But you can reach them later on again, and get the most bang for your buck, because maybe it's been expensive to just reach all these people, but in the end it might help you later on, and you can come out of the crisis much stronger than your competitors, for example.
Dominique, should we do one more? Final one, your pick.
We should take another 2 minutes for the last question. Maybe one question around data, because I think data and forecastings and also strategies is a huge topic we were discussing during the last weeks in terms of SEO and organic search per se. So I would be maybe interested in how would you see, or how do you think COVID impacts on seasonality this year? I mean, you already touched a bit on the landing page example you showed us. Maybe you can give us a bit more thoughts on that topic, because I mean, basically not really possible to rely on old or year-over-year data, right?
Exactly. Yeah, that's the thing. As we've seen in the examples, basically the whole seasonality planning, how we usually think in PPC, we do have very tough planning throughout the year, and like budgets are set for some clients a year ahead, like everything is kind of planned. And I think Corona, what it has shown us, it's like that basically all those things that we rely on so heavily with planning can be chucked into the bin. All those plans definitely no use anymore. I think all seasonality for this year has changed. You can't think of this year being as any other year. So what we have to do is just try and be really quick in adapting our strategies and budgets based on the data and trends we are seeing in our accounts. So I think if you're not data-driven enough now, make sure that you change that, because that will be the one way to come out of this whole crisis stronger and taking as much of the opportunity with you as possible. But yeah, it's like, I think one of the tough things to do, because you have to keep such a close eye on your account and the data, it's much more than it might usually be necessary. And you have to find the insights early on, find the trends, note what's happening in your account. And yeah, back in normal years, we could just know, okay, yeah, this is normal. March is a normal month that goes low. You know, you can kind of always rely on this. And at the moment we can't. We just have to see what each day brings and decide and change our strategies based on this. So yeah, again, I think this is a positive side effect, making companies also more data driven. Yeah. I know we at PKs are, especially also in our SEO team, winning all these data-driven awards. So I think it just kind of shows data.
Thanks for mentioning that.
Yeah.
Well done. You're invited back. No worries. That's sorted then.
No, but basically it just kind of shows you this. If you've not been data-driven before, it was always a great thing. Yeah. But I think especially now you have to be.
More than ever before. I totally agree. I guess that's one of the trends. But I mean, that's trends for all channels, right? I mean, of course, you guys on paid have been relying on a lot of data, but I think I think what we were seeing is the trend that it kind of is connecting, like the channels are getting more and more together with like relying on one like single source of truth, big kind of data solution. I would say is probably what we will be seeing in the future. Yeah. Well, it's already 20 minutes after 5. So even though we started a bit, no worries, that's fine. That's totally fine. Even though we started a bit, we started late, which was my mistake. So I guess we all owe this one to an extent. Anyways, thank you very, very much, Julia, for joining. It was great fun, a lot of info. For those again that were watching live, or if you're now watching somewhere. Kind of in the aftermath, so to say, probably on the YouTube channel, most likely. If you want the slides that Julia presented, please, by all means, drop us an email, hi@pa.ag, or tweet Dominique or myself, message us on Facebook. Either way works, and we're happy to kind of connect you with the team and or Julia for any questions that you might have. That being said, we are signing out. We will be back next Monday. Yep. Same time, so 4 p.m. German time, and then we will be back with a bit more on SEO and content. Thank you so much. Cheers, guys.
See you next week. Bye.